Let us begin today's class. Before starting today's class, let us have a recap of the last class topics. In the last class, we have studied about full wave rectification, and full wave rectification means both positive as well as negative half cycles of the input AC signal will be rectified. Under full wave rectification, already you know there are two rectifiers. One is bridge full wave rectifier. The second one is full wave rectifier with center type transformer. The difference between these two rectifiers is here in case of bridge rectifier we have four diodes, and we have a normal transformer which has a primary and secondary. In case of full wave rectifier with the center type transformer, we have only two diodes, and the type of transformer that we use is called as a center type transformer. And in case of center type transformer, we have a connection at the center of the secondary. Means secondary can be divided into two parts. Secondary winding of transformer has two parts. And in case of both these rectifiers, we get the output which is shown in this figure 10. We can successfully get a rectification of positive as well as negative half cycles of the input AC, and the output of both rectifiers will have half cycles in this way. All the half cycles will be above the x-axis, and the maximum peak will be Vm. And the remaining parameters, that is DC output, output current, ripple factor, power conversion efficiency, these four factors will be common for both bridge rectifier as well as full wave rectifier with center tap transformer. So in case of DC voltage, we find that we have the DC output voltage or average DC output voltage as 2 Vm by pi. Output current is IDC equals 2 Im by pi. And here Im, which is peak output current, which will be equal to peak voltage divided by peak output voltage divided by load Vm by RL. Ripple factor, we found out the ripple factor to be 0.482. From this value, we can justify that the full wave rectification reduces the ripple, because in case of half wave rectifier, this ripple factor is 1.21. By comparing these values, we can easily say that full wave rectification reduces the ripple. What is ripple? Ripple is AC content in the obtained output of the rectifier. Next, coming to power conversion efficiency, we find that power conversion efficiency eta for this full wave rectification is around 81%, which is very good compared to the conversion efficiency of half wave rectifier, where the conversion efficiency of half wave rectifier was somewhere around 40%. So this is double of that. In the bracket, we have written ideal, which means that we have assumed that the diodes which we have used are ideal diodes, means they behave like perfect switches. Whenever they are forward biased, they will act like a closed circuit, and whenever they are reverse biased, they will act like perfect open circuit. This is the circuit diagram of bridge rectifier, which performs full wave rectification. At the input, you can have a transformer, or else you can have directly the AC source. During positive half cycle of input AC, according to this circuit diagram, D2 and D3 would conduct. Therefore, the current will flow through this line, as it is indicated by this line, this continuous line. So it will flow through RL, from positive to negative terminal of RL. It will flow in this direction. And during the negative half cycle, D1 and D4 will conduct. Simultaneously, D2 and D3 will be reverse biased, therefore open circuit. And during negative half cycle, the current will flow as it is indicated through the dotted lines, and it will flow in the same direction through RL. Therefore, in both half cycles, you obtain output which is like this. And one more important point with respect to bridge rectifier is most of the electronic circuits make use of bridge rectifier as compared with the center type full wave rectifier because of the cost of center type transformer. This is the figure of full wave rectifier with the center type transformer. As you can observe, here we have transformer. This is primary winding, this is secondary winding. The secondary winding of this transformer has two parts, and the center connection is called as the center tap. Using this center tap connection, what we can do is we can accommodate two diodes which are connected in this fashion. Whenever you have a positive half cycle at the input AC, the polarities would be positive at this positive terminal of D1 and negative at the terminal of D2. Therefore, D1 would be forward biased during positive half cycle of input, and current will flow in this direction, which is indicated through this continuous line. It will flow through this load resistance. And during negative half cycle, the polarities at D1 will be negative. Therefore, D1 will be reverse biased, whereas D2 will be forward biased during the negative half cycle. The polarity would be positive here. Therefore, this would be forward biased, and the current will flow through D2 in this direction as it is indicated by this dotted line. So both during positive as well as negative half cycle, the current would flow in the same direction through load resistance RL. Therefore, we have the same kind of output. And one more important factor which is with respect to this center type transformer is usually the cost of this center type transformer would be more compared to the normal transformer. Therefore, it is not used more extensively. Whenever it is highly required, then only it would be used. And here the peak inverse voltage for this rectifier would be somewhere near greater than 2 times Vm, and for a bridge rectifier it would be somewhere near greater than Vm. After that, we have solved some of the numerical examples in the last class. This is the first example, which is on half wave rectifier. In this example, the important thing is they have given a transformer and they have given the input at this transformer, means the voltage at the primary, and this voltage is in uh, RMS value. They have given the RMS value. So from this, what we have done is first we have obtained the peak value of this voltage, and after obtaining peak value, we have used this ratio, that is N1 by N2, which is equal to VPM by VSM. VPM is peak voltage at primary winding, VSM is peak voltage at secondary winding. So using this ratio, we have found out what is the peak voltage at secondary, which is around 32.53. And after this, we calculated the remaining parameters. The important thing to note is while solving any problems, if they give a transformer, a circuit with a transformer like this, you should be very careful while determining the actual input voltage to the diode, right? So the actual input voltage for this diode would be the voltage across secondary. So you have to try to find out the peak voltage across this secondary first. Then only you should calculate the remaining parameters. Suppose in some problems they directly give the input voltage. It can be RMS value or else it can be the peak value of input voltage which is directly applied to the diode. Then this transformer turns ratio and all will not come into picture, right? You can directly start calculating the other parameters based on the formula that you have derived in the previous classes. If a transformer is given, then you should be very careful in finding out the actual input. The actual input would be the output of the secondary or voltage across the secondary of the transformer. Next, we have calculated one more problem, which is solved one more problem, which is on same half wave rectification concept. And here they have given an equation. The input is given in the form of an equation. Whenever such equation is given, this value, the constant which is there here immediately after equals, this would represent the peak value or peak input voltage, right? So directly take this value right? And you can calculate the remaining parameters according to the formulas which are derived in the previous class. This is one more way of giving the input. The first one is giving a transformer. The second way is they may give an equation. You have to pick the peak value of the input voltage or VM by identifying the constant which is present in the equation. Then afterwards, we have one more problem. Here, this is also based on a half-wave rectifier, where they have given directly the supply, which is sorry, they have given the output voltage directly 50 volt DC, right? So they have given the output voltage which is 50 volt DC, and they have given the load. Load is 800 ohm. Using this data, what you have to find out is you have to find out the input voltage, right? So to find out the input voltage, again you have to make use of these formulas, and at the end you have to find out the this is peak input voltage VM, right? From this again you can calculate the RMS also. Next, you have calculated solved one more problem, which is on full wave rectifier that makes use of two diodes. Essentially, this is the center type transformer, and they have given the internal resistance of each diode, which is around 20 ohm. This is also forward resistance. Then afterwards, they have given a transformer uh, RMS value of secondary from center tap. They have clearly mentioned that from center tap to each end, the voltage is 50, right? So here you should be very careful while reading out the sentence. So what they have given, the transformer RMS secondary voltage from center tap to each end of secondary is 50. Center tap to each end means if this is center tap transformer, from this center tap to this end it is 50, from this center tap to this end also it is 50. So you can directly take 50 as input, right? Suppose they give the complete secondary voltage as 50, then at this end it would be only 25, at this part it would be 25, right? Then afterwards, using the available formula, you can calculate the remaining parameters. So let us discuss this problem. This was not discussed in the last class. A full wave bridge rectifier with an input of 100 volt RMS feeds a load of 1 kilo ohm. VT, this is nothing but threshold voltage or knee voltage. It is around zero point 0.7. If the diodes employed are of silicon, what is the DC voltage across the load? Second is determine the maximum current that each diode conducts and the diode power rating. Determine the peak inverse voltage rating of each diode. So what they have given is they have given input of 100 volt RMS value. They have given directly the input to this diode, right? It is 100 volt RMS. And what else they have given is the diodes are of silicon, means they are not telling you to assume ideal diodes. So if the diodes are not ideal, there would be some finite voltage drop across each diode, which is equal to the VT, V threshold or the knee voltage around zero point 0.7. Therefore, for all formulas, you have to include this parameter, right? So what do you have to calculate at the first? You have to calculate DC voltage across the load. So initially, take the help of this given value, right, RMS value, and calculate VM, right? So VM would be 100 into root 2, because VRMS is VM by root 2. Therefore, VM would be VRMS into root 2, which is around 141.4. After that, you have to calculate the DC voltage across the load. So this is a full wave bridge rectifier. Full wave bridge rectifier. What is the DC voltage or average DC voltage? So the DC output voltage is 2 Vm by pi. So this we have derived by assuming that the diodes are ideal, right? So if the diodes are non-ideal, right? If the diodes are non-ideal, what would happen is whenever D2 and D3 are conducting during positive half cycle, there would be a small amount of voltage drop across this, right? So the amount of voltage drop across this would be equal to VT, right? Similarly, there will be a small amount of voltage drop across this D3 also, and the voltage drop across this D3 will be again equal to VT, right? Therefore, the complete voltage which is applied across this, right, should be subtracted with Vt once and one more Vt, right? So you have to subtract the total voltage which should be appearing at this RL with 2 Vt, because one Vt will be voltage drop across this and the second will be here. The after subtracting these two Vts, then only we'll get the remaining voltage as voltage across this load RL, right? So to incorporate that, what we have to do is we have to do a minor change in the formula. So actual formula is VDC equals 2 Vm by pi. Here in place of Vm, you replace Vm by Vm minus 2 Vt, Vm minus 2 Vt, right, divided by pi, and this comes around 44.56 volt, the VDC value after simplification, right? Next is to determine the maximum current, right? So we know that maximum current Im equals Vm by RL. In place of Vm, replace Vm by Vm minus 2 Vt, as the diodes are not ideal, right? So here 2 Vm in place of Vm minus 2 Vt divided by what is RL. RL is 1 kilo ohm, right? 1K here, right? So if you take this 10 raised to plus 3 in the numerator, it becomes 10 raised to minus 3. That is accommodated as milli here. Remaining 140 you will get by doing simplification of this, right? Then afterwards RMS value, right? To calculate this RMS value, so why this RMS is required is because we have to find out the diode power rating. RMS value can be found out by dividing this value by root 2, because here you have found out Im by root 2 is IRMS. After finding out RMS value, we shall use that to find out our power. So power for diode, they have not asked the output power across the diode, right? So power across the diode, how we are going to measure is, so if you consider this circuit, right? So the power across this diode is the current which is flowing through this diode multiplied by the voltage across this diode. As it is given in the problem, it is a silicon diode. The voltage across this silicon diode is zero point 0.7. Therefore, you have to multiply zero point 0.7 with the current that is flowing through this to get the power rating for this particular diode, right? So the current that I have considered is RMS value, because I have taken the root mean square of the complete output current, right? So if you take only the peak current, you will get the peak power rating. But in the problem, they have not asked you to calculate the peak power rating. Simply they have asked you to calculate the power rating. So in that case, you can directly take the RMS value. In the problem, if they would ask you to calculate the peak power rating, then you should take Im value and multiply that with the voltage drop across the diode. So for our case, we have taken the RMS value and multiplied that with the voltage across the diode, which is around 69 milliwatt, right? So this is the diode power rating, or simply the power dissipated across the diode. The third one is determine the peak inverse voltage rating of each diode. So the peak inverse voltage, the formula for this bridge rectifier, it is around greater than Vm, or else you can take this as nearly equal to Vm. So that is found to be 141.4, which is already calculated here. I hope this problem is clear to you. Next, we shall move further. We shall go to an interesting topic, which is a capacitor filter circuit. We already know that whether it is half wave rectifier or a full wave rectifier, amount of AC is still present in the output of these rectifiers, right? To minimize the content of AC. What is this content of AC called? It is called as ripple. To reduce this ripple and to improve the output of these rectifiers, we use an additional circuit which is called as capacitor filter. And usually this capacitor filter consists of only a single capacitor which would be connected across the load, as it is shown in the figure number 13, right? So this is the additional circuitry, only a single capacitor which would be connected across the load resistance, right? And in this figure, we have indicated a half wave rectifier circuit, and this is half wave rectifier with filtering capacitor. Half wave rectifier, as you know, it consists of only one diode, right? And this type of circuit where you have connected a capacitor across resistor to reduce the ripple is also called as peak rectifier. In the examination or in the IA, they may ask you to explain peak rectifier circuit, right? Then you should not get confused whether it is a half wave rectifier or full wave rectifier. A peak rectifier circuit is a half wave rectifier with a filtering capacitor or with capacitor filter. That is what is a peak rectifier is, right? And how does this capacitor works? You already know the basics of this capacitor. So whenever you apply some voltage source to this capacitor, initially it will start charging, right? So it will not go to the maximum value of the applied voltage. It will reach the maximum value gradually, right? So that is called as charging time. Similarly, after completely charging, if you remove the voltage source, what this capacitor will do is it will start discharging in the reverse direction. Suppose the current flows in this direction while charging. During discharging, the current will flow in the reverse direction, and the capacitor itself will act like a voltage source as long as it holds the charge, right? Whenever it is discharging, it can source or it can send current or it can source current to some load or some resistance whenever it is discharging, right? So these are the basics of a capacitor, right? Now coming to this circuit, this capacitor is connected across this load, right? So during positive half cycle of this input AC source, as this diode would start conducting, right? So this capacitor will also charge to the maximum value of this applied input voltage during the positive half cycle. Once this capacitor reaches to the maximum value or peak value Vm, right? So this capacitor would not charge further, right? So it will stop charging because the maximum value attained is Vm, right? So now the scenario is such that there is a diode. At one end of this diode, we have connected the input source. At the second end of the diode, it is connected to a capacitor which is also charged to a voltage value which is equal to the input AC. Then what would happen is obviously this diode will be reverse biased. So whenever this diode is reverse biased, what would happen is this is a open circuit. So the capacitor would start discharging as the circuit becomes open, right? So the capacitor would not be connected directly with the input AC source. Therefore, obviously, this capacitor will start discharging in this direction. And as this is a open circuit, the entire discharging current from this capacitor will be fed to the load, right? So this IL, current IL, which is flowing through this load, would be from the capacitor. So the capacitor would source the current IL through this load wherever it is discharging, right? So this would be the operation during positive half cycle. During negative half cycle, what would happen is, as usual, this diode will be reverse bias. It is open circuit. So capacitor would continue discharging. It would continue discharging and it will send the current through this load R, right? So that is what is indicated in this waveform, right? So during the positive half cycle, what happens is as long as the voltage across this the voltage across this capacitor is less than the applied voltage Vi, the diode would conduct, right? So that is what is indicated between these two lines. The gap, the first dotted line and second dotted line. So T1, this is the time instant T1 where the capacitor starts charging, and this is the time instant t2 when the capacitor stops charging, right? So only during this small gap, which is indicated as delta t here, so only during this time the capacitor would charge, right? And after that, what would happen is from t2 to the next t1, next cycles t1, this entire time the capacitor would start discharging slowly, and the discharging current or the waveform with respect to the discharging voltage is indicated like this, right? So the peak, from this peak to this value, right? So it is the ripple voltage, VR, ripple voltage. Here you can see, if you compare this waveform with the actual full wave rectifier or half wave rectifier waveform, right? So the amount of ripple, that is VR, is very much less, right? So the content of AC in the output voltage is reduced to a maximum extent, And what would happen is the same process, right? During the second positive cycle, the same process would happen here also. The capacitor will charge only during this small duration, right? And after this the capacitor would start discharging, right? So this complete waveform, right, this would be the output at this load, or you can consider it as v naught, right? So this waveform, right, this itself is v naught, right? So this v naught, if you can consider, or if you can compare this v naught with your previous waveforms, that is this one, right? So we can easily say that the amount of ripple content is reduced, right? So this is the half wave rectifier without capacitor filter. You can see the ripples, right, or the amount of AC content. Compare that with this waveform, this one, right? You can see that the amount of ripple is reduced, right? One more important thing while designing or while choosing a capacitor is, so capacitor with the maximum value or maximum capacitance value is chosen, so that it would control the amount of ripple, because a capacitor with maximum capacitance value will take a larger time to discharge. If a capacitor can hold charge for a longer time, obviously this line or this waveform would be almost a straight line, right? Almost a straight line, which indicates that your output voltage V naught is nearly equal to a DC voltage, right? Therefore, it is very important to choose the value of capacitance, and usually a capacitor with larger capacitance value is chosen, or high value of C is chosen to obtain a output voltage V naught which is nearly equal to actual real DC. This is the formula for ripple factor. The derivation is not in the scope of discussion here, so we can use the formula directly. So the ripple factor is 1 by 2 root 3 f is frequency, fc rl, right? So this is the ripple factor formula for half wave rectifier. So next I will take you to the practical aspects of this. I will take you to the virtual labs. Here you can see a half wave rectifier. This is half wave rectifier circuit with a capacitor at the load, right? This is very simple circuit. Here we have the AC source. AC source, it is fed to the diode, and the diode's output. This is common for this load RL as well as this capacitor. I'll just turn on this. So the this is the rectified output without capacitor filter. You can see on this screen. This waveform indicates a half wave rectifier's output without capacitor filter. Now if I run the simulation, so I can see, right? So initially during the first half cycle, what would happen is the capacitor will charge to the peak, right? So after charging to the peak, the voltage across this capacitor would be equal to the voltage across voltage of this input source. Therefore, this diode would be reverse biased, as both ends are connected to the same voltage. Diode would be reverse biased, and at this point, the capacitor would start discharging, right? So it would start discharging in the reverse direction, and the current of this capacitor, current from this capacitor would start flowing through this load RL. From this capacitor, the current will flow through RL, because this is a open circuit, right? And this discharging will continue till here, till the arrival of next positive edge of clock, right? So here what would happen is the amount of voltage which is left out, or the charge which is held by this capacitor, would be obviously less compared to the applied input voltage. When the condition is such that this voltage is greater than the charge held by this capacitor, then only the capacitor would again start charging, because this diode would be forward biased whenever this voltage is greater than the charge of the capacitor, right? The diode would be forward biased, and again the capacitor would charge to the peak value. After reaching peak value, at both ends of this diode, same voltage will be applied, That is, the value of this input voltage will be equal to the amount of voltage which is held by this capacitor. Therefore, this would be reverse biased at this peak. That is, from this peak to the next positive half cycle, the capacitor will start discharging, and the waveform would be like this, right? Now you can see both waveforms. You can see the capacitor filters waveform as well as the uh, half wave rectifier without capacitor filter. This is only the uh, capacitor filters output, or a half wave rectifier with capacitor filter. Here you can see that the amount of ripples or the AC content is reduced, and this is almost nearly equal to a straight line. So this is nearly equal to a straight line almost, right? And these are some of the formulas, right? I hope this capacitor filter is very well understood. This is half wave rectifier with capacitor filter, also called as peak rectifier. Coming back to the PPT, so next we have a small variant. Here what we are doing is we are connecting the same capacitor filter across load for a full wave rectifier. This is a full wave rectifier which is using center tap transformer, where there are only two diodes, and we are connecting a capacitor across the load. Here also the operation would be same, as long as the voltage of this capacitor is greater than or equal to the input secondary voltage, the diodes would be off, or the diodes would be reverse biased, and the capacitor would start discharging through this RL. When the value of this capacitor voltage and the voltage across this capacitor becomes less or reaches to a value which is less than the applied voltage or the secondary voltage of the transformer, then the diodes would start conducting, and again the capacitor would start charging in this direction, either through D1 or either through D2, right? And once the voltage across this capacitor reaches to the maximum value or peak value of the input secondary voltage, that is Vm, the diode D1 or D2 would stop conducting, and the capacitor would start discharging through RL. The entire current from this capacitor flows through RL during discharging time. That is what is indicated in this waveform, right? So the green lines indicate that capacitor is discharging, and the small red lines indicate that capacitor is charging, right? So here during the first half cycle, D1 would be conducting. Therefore, current flows through this capacitor, or this capacitor charges through D1 during the first half cycle. During the second half cycle, as usual, D1 will be reverse biased and D2 would be forward biased. So whenever the voltage of this capacitor reaches this point, and the input voltage or the secondary voltage is greater than the voltage across capacitor, then through D2 the capacitor will start charging, right? So this is the small red line portion which indicates that capacitor is charging through D2 during second cycle. Then after reaching the peak, again capacitor discharges, and this third cycle indicates that the capacitor is again charging through D1, and this process will continue, so that you get a output waveform which is nearly equal to a straight line, which means that the amount of ripple is reduced. And these are some of the formulas with respect to this full wave rectifier and full wave rectifier with capacitor filter. And again, the derivation is not in the scope of discussion for this topic. The VR is nothing but this voltage from this peak to this value. From peak to this is VR. So the peak to peak ripple VR or ripple voltage is VDC divided by 2FC RL, and the ripple factor for this is VRMS by VDC, and VRMS is VDC divided by this value, right? So the RMS value of this waveform you have to take. You should not take RMS of the rectifier. Uh, the RMS of this waveform, this capacitor filters waveform is this, which is nothing but the ripple voltage, VDC divided by 2FC RL divided by VDC, which is divided by 2 root 3 into VDC. VDC is 1 by VDC here, 1 by VDC, uh, and ripple factor finally it gets to be, after simplification, 1 by 4 root 3 FCRL. This is for full wave rectifier. Again, to know the practical aspects, I will take you to the virtual lab. Practical aspects of this full wave rectifier with capacitor filter. So in this virtual lab, we have a full wave bridge rectifier rather than a full wave rectifier with center tap transformer. We have a full wave rectifier which is a bridge rectifier, and also we know that the output of bridge rectifier and also the output of full wave rectifier with capacitor filter, the outputs are same. Therefore, we can easily equate the response of this circuit with the response of a full wave rectifier with capacitor filter. I hope that is clear for you. So first I will turn on this circuit, then I will try to obtain the full wave rectified output. So this is the output of full wave rectifier. So both half cycles will be rectified. The amount of ripple is high and the amount of ripple is low compared to half wave rectification. Then after running this simulation, we will get the capacitor filters output. So only during the first half cycle, the capacitor will fully charge and diodes D2 and D3. Right here it is not named. Right, you can consider this diode and this one. They will be conducting. Right, and you will get the complete charging of capacitor. Once capacitor charges to maximum value, the diodes will be off and capacitor will start discharging. Again during the second half cycle, these two diodes will be forward biased, right, and the capacitor will charge to a smaller extent. After reaching maximum value, again the capacitor will discharge, and again during this third cycle, again these two diodes will start conducting. Capacitor will charge and reach maximum value, then afterwards it will start discharging, and this process will continue. Here also we can see some of the formulas with respect to this full wave bridge rectifier. If I apply dual, you can see both waveforms, right? So this is the actual waveform of capacitor filter, which is almost nearly equal to a straight line. By this, you can easily say that the amount of ripple or the amount of AC in the output of rectifier is reduced to a maximum extent. Channel 1 is the output of full wave rectifier. This is dual, where we can see the output of rectifier as well as output of capacitor filter. I hope both concepts of capacitive rectification is clear. Now we shall move on to the next topics. Yes, Shreya, you have any queries? You have raised hand. That's why I am asking. If you have no queries, I will continue. Next concept is of a photodiode. This is also very interesting concept, photodiode. So usually this photodiode, it is a PN junction diode. It is like a normal PN junction diode, which usually it is operated in reverse bias condition, right? And you already know whenever a diode is operated in reverse bias condition, a small amount of current, which is also called as reverse saturation current, will flow through the diode, right? And this reverse saturation current, why does this occur? This occurs mainly due to the minority carriers which are generated thermally due to the room temperature or due to the ambient temperature. These minority carriers will be generated across P and N type semiconductors, and due to these minority carriers, reverse current, which will be of a very small quantity, will flow through a reverse biased PN junction diode. Now you know that light is nothing but a pack of photons, right? And each photon will have a definite energy, right? Now when you try to impart photons, or when you focus photons, or when you try to impinge light on this PN junction as it is indicated in this diagram, what would happen is the light is consisting of photons. Each photon will have a definite energy, and these photons will hit the p-n junction diode. On both sides, what these light photons will do is they will impart energy on the valence electrons on both sides, on p as well as n type, and they will result in generation of more electron hole pairs, right? So whenever this light falls on p-n junction, what happens is the photons would transfer energy to the valence electrons, and this results in more electron hole pairs to be generating, right? So the electrons will come out of the valence shell and they will reach the conduction band, right? Means they will be available for conduction. So suddenly what would happen is a small reverse current will be suddenly increased to a larger current due to the formation of more electron hole pairs, and a large reverse current would flow, and that large reverse current is termed as I lambda, the current which is generated due to the fall of photons, or whenever you make light to fall on this, the current is generated, right? To assist the generation of a large current, what you can do is you can make use of something called as lens, a focusing lens, or else a mirror can also be used, right? So here you can see the p semiconductor is connected to negative terminal of battery. N type semiconductor is connected to positive terminal of the battery through this resistance. So whenever of the large amount of reverse current, and to assist the light, we can use a focusing lens, which would be a optical device, a focusing lens, or else it can also is something called mirror. It is also called as mirror. A focusing mirror can also be used. Here you can see the symbol for this photodiode. You can see the same diode symbol. Along with the diode symbol, you can see two arrow marks, right? So the arrow marks are directed towards the diode. Means this is a light sensitive diode which works on the fall of light. So the direction of arrow marks is very important. These two small arrow marks are directed towards the diode, which means that when light falls on this diode will start conducting, right? And here you can see the vi characteristic. This is just for study purpose. You need not worry much about this vi characteristic. Here you can see the first line which is indicated as dark current. So what is this dark current? Dark current is the minimum amount of reverse saturation current that flows through this reverse saturated diode when no light is falling on this, right? So you can consider this dark current as is when no current flows through, when no light falls on this p-n junction diode, right? So that is what is the dark current. The magnitude of that dark current is very small, as it is indicated in this graph, right? Next, after this, you can see a light intensity of around 1,000 lumens, right? So it is FC, it is indicating light intensity. As the intensity increases, you can also see the amount of increase in the current. So the value of current is slightly higher compared to the first one. Further, if you see 2000 lumens, if the light intensity is still increased to 2000 lumens, we can further see increase in the current. So the x-axis, sorry, the y-axis is current, that is reverse saturation current I lambda, which is in microampere. We can see the further increase in current. So the compared to these two lines, this is a higher value of current, right? Next, further, if you increase light intensity, again you can get a higher value of current, right? Still, if you increase light intensity to 4000 lumens, again you will get a larger current, right? So at last, there is one more graph for 5000 lumens. For this, you have the maximum current. Still, if you increase the light intensity, again the current will increase, right? So you can say that the amount of reverse current I lambda is directly proportional to the light intensity. If the light intensity is more, the value of I lambda will also be more, right? And one more thing, you should be very curious in this. You have a load here, and you have a voltage source here. The purpose of this voltage source is only to put this PN junction diode in the initial reverse bias condition. That's all. That is what is the work of this voltage source, right? So whenever this PN junction diode receives light and it starts conducting a maximum current in reverse direction, the current which is flowing through this diode will be occupied by this diode, sorry, this load, right? So this load can be a circuit or else a resistance. The voltage across this load you can take as output from this photodiode. Basically this photodiode is a receiving device, it is a receiving device, right? So when light falls on this, maximum value of current flows, and the current flows through this resistance, and you can take the output across this resistance. The voltage across this resistance would be the actual output from this photodiode. This voltage source is only for putting this photodiode in the initial reverse bias condition, because initially you have to reverse bias this photodiode. In reverse bias condition, when excess amount of light falls on this, then it leads to a current, and the current is I lambda, right? I hope this is clear. And you would be curious enough to know the applications of this photodiode. And in this pandemic situation, you are using this photodiode in your day-to-day life. So I hope someone would guess this, right? The pulse oximeter, what you are using, it consists of a photodiode, right? It consists of a LED. The light falls out of the LED, and it falls on your finger, and through your finger, the light falls onto a photodiode, right? So the application of a photodiode is constructing a pulse oximeter. It finds its place in pulse oximeter. Next, we have LED. LED is a light emitting diode. As compared with the photodiode, the LED is usually operated in forward biased condition. The LED will be operated in forward bias condition, and the principle on which this LED works, or the principle on which this PN junction diode emits light, is this one, electroluminescence, right? So what is this principle is? This principle is occurs during the recombination of electrons and holes. You already know that whenever recombination of electrons and holes takes place, the kinetic energy of the electrons is lost in terms of heat. Some part of kinetic energy will be lost in terms of heat, and the remaining part, or in specific a small part of energy, kinetic energy, will be converted as a photon, or light will be emitted, a very small quantity. And this process would happen in normal PN junction diode, which is made of silicon or germanium. But in case of PN junction diode, which is made of materials like gallium arsenide or gallium phosphide. So if a PN junction diode is made up of gallium arsenide or gallium phosphide, what would happen is the amount of heat generated during recombination will be less, and the amount of light which is generated will be more, right? And such diodes which are made up of gallium arsenide or gallium phosphide instead of silicon will be used as LEDs, right? So in the picture you can see LED. It is a light which is used as indicator in most of the electronic equipments, also medical equipments, where you can find this LED in most of the places. In your day-to-day life, you can see this LED which is being used as an indicator. So if this LED is on, it indicates that certain process is running, right? For example, LED is on, it means that the TV is running. If an LED is on, it means that a monitor is turned on, right? Like this, it is used for indicative purposes, LED, right? And one more important thing in this, in case of this LED, is you can see this light emission process or the electroluminescence process. Here, one plate, one metal plate, right? The metal plate of this N-type semiconductor, this would be very large, right? And the metal plate or the contact plate of P-type semiconductor, this will be very small. Means a large space will be left open for the light to flow out. Because of this only we can see the emergence of light whenever this LED is turned on. Because of this gap which is left out at the top of this LED bulb, that gap is because of this, right? The because of that gap only we can see the light whenever it is emitted out from this LED, right? And the voltage levels on this on which this LED works is the minimum voltage is around 1.7, right? Up to it works for 3.3 volt, right? More than 3.3 volt also it can work. Some LEDs are there which would be used for applications of power electronics where a maximum current would flow through the circuits. Such LEDs can work for still higher voltage. Usually, a common LED will work in this range 1.7. So, this amount of voltage is required for the LED to emit light, right? So, this is not the voltage which is required for the diode to be in forward biased region. This is required for the LED to have this process of electroluminescence and emit light. So around 1.7 volt. If this voltage is applied, then only LED can emit light, right? So you can conduct this experiment on your home, right? What you can do is you can take an LED and you can connect that to a battery which is having slightly less charge, and you can see the intensity of light. Either the LED glows with a small intensity or it will not glow at all, right? Now you replace the battery with a battery having fully charged, and you can see the intensity of LED. As the battery is fully charged, large amount of current will flow and LED will be turned on with a higher intensity, right? And these LEDs will come in these colors: red, green, orange, or blue. These are the most common colors. Some other colors are also possible, right? And one more thing, this is the circuit symbol for this LED. Positive terminal anode, negative terminal cathode, and it is operated in forward biased condition. You can see the arrow marks. Arrow marks are directed outside from LED. The arrow marks are directed towards outside. Means this is emitting light. You can compare the symbol with the symbol of photodiode. Here arrow marks are towards the LED, or sorry, towards the diode, which means that it receives light and starts conduction, photodiode. Whereas here the arrow marks are directed outwards, which means that upon forward biasing, this would conduct and it will emit light. That is the meaning of the circuit symbols. And here also the light intensity is directly proportional to the amount of voltage that you apply, and directly proportional to the current that flows through the LED. Next, we have an interesting package which is combination of photodiode and LED, right? So this package itself is completely present inside your pulse oximeter, right? So what is this package consists of is, it is consisting of LED, which is as shown in the figure. This is LED, and next it consists of photodiode. This is photodiode, right? From this LED, the light would fall on the photodiode. This LED, usually this is PN junction diode, which is forward biased. This will operate based on the applied voltage here. This voltage source is basically to make this diode to be operating in forward bias condition. Apart from that, you can also connect a load here. This load can also be one more circuit or else simply a resistance, right? So from this LED, light falls on this photodiode, and depending on the intensity of light that falls on this photodiode, the current would flow through this photodiode in a reverse condition. Initially, a small amount of reverse current will flow, which is also called as a dark current. That is due to the reverse biased polarity of the battery. When the sufficient light falls on this reverse current would increase to, to a greater value than dark current, and that current will flow through this load R2, and at the voltage across this R2 you can take it as output voltage, and or else you can connect a load here or a circuit through which you can tap out the voltage, which is basically due to the high amount of current which flows in the reverse direction from this photodiode, right? The main advantage of this photocoupler, this package is the circuits are electrically isolated, and this can be used in circuits which are working on two different voltages. The first part of the circuit may be working at a voltage level for around 50 to 60 volt. The second part of the circuit may be working in the range of 20 to 30 volt, right? So if you connect the two parts directly, then a large current would flow to the second part of the circuit, which works on lesser voltage range, and it would damage some of the components in the second part. To avoid that, we can use the devices like a photocoupler, which would electrically isolate two parts of a circuit. Even though it electrically isolates two parts of the circuit, it can easily send the signal from one part of the circuit to the second part in the form of light, and the second part of the circuit can tap the signal from the first part, and it can do its task. That is the key advantage, electrical isolation between the two circuits. And usually it is used to couple circuits which works on different voltage levels, and the voltage level may differ by several thousand volts also. In such situation also it can be used. This is all about photocoupler. So these are some of the applications of photodiode, LED, and photocoupler. In case of photodiode, you can find enormous number of applications. The first one is camera application, right? It is used in camera as light meters, automatic shutter control, autofocus, photographic flash control, etc. In case of medical devices, it can be used in CAT scanners, X-ray detection. Most important thing is pulse oximeter, which we are using in day-to-day life. Here you can find a photodiode, then blood particle analyzers, and so on. It is also used in safety equipments like smoke detectors, flame monitors, right? And it is used in automotive industry for headlight dimmer, right? Twilight detectors, right? And it is used in communications like fiber optic communication, optical communication, optical remote control. In so many applications are there. Then it can be used in industry for barcode scanner, light pens, brightness controllers, photodiode based encoders, so on, right? The applications of LED are also widespread. The most important thing that we use in our day-to-day life is a TV. So it is used in the backlighting of TV. Apart from that, it can be used in some decorative purposes like a lighted wallpaper, and in medical devices, in most of the medical equipments and general equipments also, LED is used as a indicator. The turning on of an LED indicates a process is running, and the turning off of an LED indicates that the process is not running. That is what is LED. Coming to photocoupler, it is also having many applications. Actually, this photocoupler, as you know, it is combination of photodiode and LED. The specific application of photocoupler is a microprocessor. Inside microprocessor, it is used for input-output switching. It is used for DC and AC power controller, signal isolation, because it isolates the two parts of a circuit. Therefore, it is used for signal isolation, and power supply regulation also it is useful. A regulator, regulator is a device which keeps constant output supply irrespective of variation in output load or irrespective of variation in the input supply. That is what is regulation. And it is also used in PC communications. In most of the PC communications, photocoupler is used. This is sufficient for today's class. We have left out with one more topic, which is 78XX series. This is basically a three terminal IC regulator. We shall discuss this in the next class.